Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am your host, coming to you live from a hotel in Redondo Beach, California, after attending the Chargers' victory over the Rams today, 31-10. So apologies in advance if the connection falls out, but, we're going to do our best today, and, hopefully the connection holds through. So joining me are my guys, Tyler and Alex. Alex, we'll start with you, man. How are you doing tonight?
I will never thank the city of Pittsburgh for anything, but the events that occurred have caused the Chargers to potentially maybe clinch the 5th seed next week if they can beat Mr. Unlimited and the Denver Broncos. So I think that is a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing. Unfortunately, my guy Tyler Huntley throwing an interception at the end there. Obviously rooting for him to be successful individually, but was obviously hoping for the Ravens to lose. So, it is what it is. We'll dive in a little bit to the Chargers playoff scenario. There's obviously the only one left after the last few weeks. So we'll dive into that here in a second. Tyler, what's up, man? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I don't remember the last time we went to a game and the Chargers were already in the playoffs. And then throughout basically the entire game, the Chargers had that game wrapped up, got to sit their starters in the fourth quarter. And then, the teams before them, not tonight, the Steelers, they're all losing games. The Ravens tonight, helping out the Chargers. I've never just felt so fulfilled and happy. And I don't think my heart rate went over 300 today. So that was great.
Yeah, it was a very low-key game. It's nice for me and Brooke. Obviously, we're attending the Rose Bowl tomorrow, so good to save all of our yelling for much more important game tomorrow. So there was that one sack that Jalen Ramsey had on Justin Herbert that maybe rose the blood pressure a little bit there in the third quarter, but that was relatively it. Calm game. Good complete win for the Chargers. We'll dive into all of that here in a second. So, first and foremost here, I think, we have to start with the way the offense played today, in general takeaways there. So, Tyler, me and you kind of were joking with Arjun a little bit, throughout the game about, the play action passing attack, about the third quarter touchdown, which we finally got.
Yes,
we did it. We did our prop bet.
We did it.
The Chargers streak is officially over in terms of third quarter touchdowns. So, didn't get to see obviously the whole 4 quarters of the game. The Rams were not able to keep it, close and competitive. But what was your kind of review of the way the offense played today?
I mean, where do I start? It just felt like, okay, big picture. What it really felt like to me is that the guys were used in ways that I think best seemed to suit them. Not that they didn't have to do some plays that, sure, Mike Williams had to run around and catch a curl in zone or whatever. But it just felt like everyone was involved in some way that felt really like it fit their strong suits. Whether that's just targeting the tight ends, in the red zone, like Donald Parham. Of course, he would score a touchdown there. That's perfect for him, a perfect spot for him. You don't have to target him frequently, but when you get to that area, do that. The way Mike Williams is targeted down the sideline with outstanding catches today. That was fantastic. It really just felt like they were able to do what they wanted, and they were doing it in ways that made sense. It wasn't just like, go run the routes and we'll see who's open. It really just felt like everyone got a piece of showing off what they were able to do and what they're good at today. And everyone really feasted. Sure, the coordinator, sure, the coach, coordinator, but also just line. Sure, numbers, I think they gave a far higher day, which is way different than, of course. And then one fantastic. It's a line, of course, was outstanding. Another huge run this time for a touchdown. Everything basically worked outside of a couple plays and one red zone sequence. It was a mostly flawless game for the offense today, and that was really nice to see.
Yeah, absolutely. The offense easily their best performance of the week. I shared the tweet on from Ben Baldwin earlier this afternoon in terms of EPA, in terms of efficiency. This was by far their best offensive output of the season. So really nice to see. Obviously, I'm not going to make any sweeping declarations that the offense is back or anything by any means, but it was great to see a day of this magnitude from this offense. So, Alex, what was your takeaway from the offense in terms of watching the broadcast and maybe some picking up on some things that the two of us who were at the game maybe couldn't have, or how they performed.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything just ran pretty efficiently as a whole. And like Tyler said, just kind of using the guys that we know can be really good in this offense in ways that work for them and in the roles that they should be, like Mike Williams, like Austin Ekeler, using Gerald Everett and Donald Parham in the red zone, which certain people have been calling for. But yeah, I think just really just fitting it into the player skill sets, kind of like Tyler said, and even on plays where it didn't work. The Herbert, Josh Palmer, where they were a little bit disconnected on that play, there was still like a strict intent. Okay, Herbert knew he was going to throw to Josh Palmer there, or at least try if he was kind of open, and the play just didn't work out. But there was an intent and a design there that I think maybe when things had been cramped up in the red zone in previous weeks that we just didn't really see before. So yeah, I thought everything worked out by all the metrics and EPA per play, both offensive and defensive. This was probably by far the Chargers' most efficient game of the season. In graphs that were shared all over Twitter today. But yeah, it felt like that watching it. This was a complete performance from beginning until when they put Chase Daniel and Larry Roundtree in the game, in terms of evaluating this current offense with Justin Herbert. So in that respect, this is exactly just what you want to see from the offense heading into the playoffs. Obviously, the last 2 weeks, particularly against the Colts defense and the Rams defense and, those teams in the states they're in, you're not going to be like, okay, this is completely replicable in the playoffs versus Kansas City or versus Buffalo. But the difference in my response, or I think a lot of Chargers fans' response to the offense this week versus last week, is just kind of night and day in terms of how they ran everything and how they took advantage of those opportunities in the red zone. So for me, this is exactly the kind of game you want to see going forward.
Yeah, we obviously got the question yesterday about what we wanted to see from the offense, and we kind of joked about, or I kind of joked about ESPN's prediction for the Chargers scoring 44 points. Maybe they would have if the Rams had been able to score another touchdown or two, but I thought the offense played really, really well today. We didn't necessarily get any of the big passing plays that we're necessarily used to. Obviously, had the big Austin Ekeler touchdown run. A couple intermediate to kind of the lower deep parts of the field in terms of the passing game that Mike Williams and Keenan Allen had a couple big plays, but just a really efficient day on offense overall. So, the Chargers have to continue to do this, and I thought it wasn't necessarily like a super clean game in terms of the play calling, in terms of the game plan. But obviously the Chargers were able to take care of business, move the ball. And I think for me, the biggest thing from the offense is the way that they activated the run game. They've been blocking better and better each of the last few weeks. Somebody put that up there. So they've been blocking better over the last few weeks up front. Obviously, having Trey Pipkins back in the fold has really paid dividends for them. And so today they were really able to get after the Rams in the run game. So they've started to figure out some things that work. They're really using the shotgun run game effectively. That popped up a little bit today. So they're finding some of their stride at the very right time. And obviously, they just have to continue to do that over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm curious what they do. Well, I don't know where Xander Horvath is going to be moving forward, whether he's healthy or whether he comes back next week or whatever. But they definitely tried to do not exactly what the Seahawks did against the Chargers, but it felt like rather than just have McKitty block on the edge or have someone block on the edge, they really got guys involved in the backfield and moving or on the run, moving to block rather than just being kind of a stagnant, one versus the edge kind of guy. They did it with Gerald Everett, did it with McKitty, did it with Stone Smart. It really felt like they tried to do some different things there. And I think that really did pay off. Now, is this Rams defensive line healthy? Was Aaron Donald out there? No. Was Ashawn Robinson out there? No. But, I like what the Chargers were able to do today. And it really just felt like this is a really good sign. Not that it was, I'm not ready to buy into this offense, just like I wasn't ready to buy into this defense either. But seeing this and what they were able to do, the way they were able to do it, and how they were blocking, it's really nice to see heading into the postseason.
Yeah, definitely the blocking is huge for me. I mean, on that big touchdown that Ekeler scored where Matt Filer blocks Bobby Wagner, and then you just have all the receivers and everyone. Keenan Allen came up with a clutch block on that play too. It just felt like, especially when runs or plays got to the second or third levels in general, the blocking was just always there. That was something that hadn't, I think, been super consistent in the last couple weeks. So to see that, in terms of something that from an effort standpoint is, can translate into a playoff performance. I think that's something that is important. But yeah, not ready to completely buy into this offense, after Joe Lombardi scores 30 points one time. But in terms of what the Chargers, can do in terms of momentum going forward, I think that this performance provides, sort of a blueprint for how they can handle things. And even in a scheme that maybe we all agree is a little bit limited, they still can get 30 points and take advantage of the players that they have on the field.
Yeah, and something that you pointed out, and that Tyler Arjun and I were talking about, just in general in the offensive approach. It's like things just feel easier when Mike Williams gets involved early and often, and we saw that right away. Obviously, they go 3-and-out in their first possession, but second possession where they scored the touchdown. First play of that drive was a deep pass to Mike Williams for 26 yards. And then a few plays later, they hit Mike Williams again on a shorter pass that he kind of took after the catch for 19 yards. And then Austin Ekeler scored on the next play. So it felt like there was a more concerted effort to get Mike Williams going earlier in this game. Obviously, he had a huge catch, one of the craziest catches I've ever seen in my life down the sideline. But I like the way that they were getting Mike Williams involved early and often. I think that really allows the offense to kind of get into a rhythm at a higher level than we've seen in just kind of throwing short passes to Keenan or to Ekeler or things like that.
Yeah, I mean, we got asked on Saturday, who is kind of the number one, player aside from Herbert on the offense that can potentially be the difference in this team getting to Super Bowl or making a really big playoff push. And for me, I sort of answered Mike Williams at the time, not knowing he was going to have this kind of a game.
Yeah.
But, I think this is another reason why, you could sort of see Mike Williams having a postseason, on the high variance of outcomes that like Jamar Chase or like some of these other players, have had in previous seasons. So that's, I think, the reason that you really wanted to kind of see this game from Mike Williams. Obviously, Mike Williams kind of comes and goes. It's sort of why he's not like a top 10 receiver in the league per se. We've seen him have really big weeks some weeks, and then other weeks kind of disappear. Say like the Titans game. So, you would like to see this on a more consistent basis, but in a 3-game stretch where, you just can have a couple games to win the AFC, Mike Williams is definitely one of those matchup nightmares that I think teams are going to have to think about a lot in the playoffs, especially if the Chargers continue what they did today and get him more involved.
Yeah, just again, love the way that he was used today. 7 catches, 94 yards. If this game were more competitive, you're easily talking about 130, 140 yard game for Mike Williams, in my opinion, just the way that it was going. And it felt like it's felt like all season long that Joe Lombardi will find things that works in one game and then kind of like will go away from it. But it didn't feel that way with Mike Williams. I mean, he was matched up with Troy Hill on a good amount of plays today. And it felt like every time that was happening, they were going after it. And I think that is obviously a key for success because there's frankly not a lot of corners out there that can match up with Mike Williams one-on-one on a consistent basis like that. So, again, game plan was not perfect. I did really enjoy the way that they kind of managed Mike Williams' workload today and just kind of continued to feed him the ball all throughout the game.
Yeah, he was awesome. Even on that first drive, there should have been illegal contact called because he almost got a huge bomb on 3rd and 10 or 11, whatever it was. Yeah, like you said, should have been over 100 yards if he played the whole game. If you don't have to, that's fine. The Chargers really you can just tell, like, why don't they score in the 3rd quarter, but why do they score in the 4th quarter? You see against the Titans, not that they scored a touchdown, but that final drive, you needed that Mike Williams catch. Against the Colts, not really doing a whole lot with Mike Williams that game in the 4th quarter. Not that they were in danger of losing, but on that final touchdown drive, he had 42 yards. Today, on several key moments, several key drives, I mean, not that they didn't need every single one of them, but they got 31 points because of it. Like the offense just scores and scores so much faster, so much better when they get Mike Williams involved. Is it always easy to? Not necessarily. You don't want to rely on these, high variance, low probability kind of throws and catches. But if you're going to do it with anyone, it is Mike Williams who it's weird that today of all days, I feel like this, but it's been so tough. Like last year, hit or miss. Like Mike Williams starts so hot, he gets hurt, he disappears, he goes away, he comes back, not so great. But then against the Raiders, like, oh my gosh, they don't win that game without him. And then he gets paid. And, there's a point where it's like, I get why they would pay him. I get why they wouldn't pay him. They did end up paying him. So now what are you going to give us after you got your big contract? And there were moments throughout the year, I feel like I've been very close to this, but then he got hurt, or he'd, have, the 10 or whatever yard game it was against the Vikings, the Raiders. It just feels like after this game, and I don't know why, maybe it's because I was watching it live, and of course the plays he made, he's just a dude that I trust now. Like I really feel like today, for some reason, is the day I thought, yeah, Mike Williams is that guy. And maybe if I watch the film, I'll still think that Keenan Allen had a better day or something on film. I don't know. But today, just like, you can tell that this is a guy who is going to catapult you far into the postseason if you give him a chance. And really, kind of like Alex was saying, it's the guy that you lean on. Keenan Allen could probably have 10 catches for 100 yards in the postseason in a particular game, but you need Mike Williams to win in the postseason. You need him for Herbert. And I really appreciate watching him. And I think this is the first time where there's no more qualifiers for me with Mike Williams. Just like, yeah, he's a guy.
Yeah, and unlike the 2013 trip to the playoffs or the 2018 trip to the playoffs, like I think Keenan Allen, you could argue who's the number one receiver on this team still. But in terms of someone who's going to be a matchup nightmare and make those kinds of catches and make those kind of big plays that the Chargers are looking for, clearly, the explosive play machine is Mike Williams, and that's who the offense goes through. So I think that, in particular with Keenan being a little bit older, obviously, than he was in terms of the last playoff run, that's something that you're kind of looking at as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Alex. Being able to highlight just the way that his role helps the offense at a higher level, I think is super crucial, because obviously the Chargers don't have that deep threat, that traditional speed deep threat, obviously, without Jalen Guyton. So, Mike Williams' role and his targets are just that much more valuable, because they're traditionally the only ways for them to access the deep parts of the field, to have these explosive passes, and just give the Chargers easier opportunities to score and faster opportunities to score. I mean, they had 2 touchdown drives that were under 2 minutes in time off of the clock because of big Mike Williams passes today. So just a great game, and I think, again, highlighting where this offense has to go heading forward, especially if they're going to go win a playoff game on the road. It's going to have to be, Mike Williams is going to have his fingerprints all over that game in the future. So I think this is hopefully something that the Chargers can build off of next week, and then obviously in the first week of the playoffs.
Yes.
All right. One of the other things in terms of the offense that I think we absolutely have to talk about, we talked briefly about the run game there for a second, but we didn't really talk much about any positives on offense against the Colts. It wasn't, frankly, a very positive offensive performance.
Yeah.
And lost in that performance, obviously, is the 2 touchdowns from Austin Ekeler. 2 more touchdowns today from Austin Ekeler, totaling 10 carries, 122 yards on the day. Obviously had the big 72-yard run to really kind of open this game open. Open this game open. That was terrible. Anyways. So Austin Ekeler, man, he's 2 touchdowns away from having back-to-back seasons of 20 touchdowns. He matched LaDainian Tomlinson's franchise record for receptions by a running back in a season today. Obviously has another game to break that record. So we didn't do a good enough job, in my opinion, of highlighting Austin Ekeler last week. And I wanted to be able to take a moment today to do that, because he's just having a truly special season. And I don't think the Chargers are in this position right now without Austin Ekeler being just that stabilizing presence as a pass catcher, without Keenan Allen and Mike Williams in that stretch. So what Austin Ekeler has done this year, it's not going to break any yardage records. I can understand why he's not a Pro Bowl running back, but he's just so tremendously valuable to this team. And, him having a huge day today, I think it was very well deserving and kind of a long time coming for him.
Wait, are you saying that he didn't break the LT record, or he tied it today?
I thought that he tied it today.
That he broke it.
Broke it. I think he passed it by at least 1 or 3.
Yeah, because
I thought he tied it today. I only saw the graphic that he tied it. So.
Oh, yeah, because later in the game, I think they put the graphic up on the broadcast that he had 101 receptions to LT's 100 as the single season record. But yeah, no, I mean, Austin Ekeler had an awesome game, and it helps, like we were saying, that the blocking just was kind of all in sync on the offense today, especially, with Keenan and Donald Parham on that, big run that he springs for 72 yards. So, just as a whole, it just felt like the blocking scheme, the offensive line played more in sync. And that's going to give more rushing opportunities for somebody like Austin Ekeler, who doesn't have to do his, damage just like getting these 2-3 yard chunk runs and then like, okay, I'm going to catch a screen and then I have to do my best to, take this to the house. Right. So definitely an easier offensive game for Austin Ekeler, which is just what you want to see in terms of opening him up, potentially for the playoff stretch. And making him a potential problem in the playoffs. So, it is funny just to look at the numbers and you see that he has 101 receptions. And then, the yardage is not, probably where LT's yardage was because of, how he's being used. But just as a whole, it felt like everything came easier today for Austin Ekeler, both in terms of the way he was being used and contrasting that with what he was being used previously. And then, of course, the blocking coming to play today was huge for him.
It really felt like a vintage Austin Ekeler performance, like why we really fell in love with him in the first place. Not that he hasn't had good weeks, but like Alex said, it felt like, 2-yard run, 3-yard run, prey on a screen. And then he gets to like the red zone. He looks really good, but it's not like that kind of game. Today it was, I'm going to catch a pass, make that guy miss. I think he left was it him that left Bobby Wagner just completely in the dirt on one play? Yep. I mean, that was fantastic. Running hard, running fast. I'll be honest, because he was coming towards us, running towards the end zone. I thought he was going to get caught like he was against the Browns. I don't know if he just went full fantasy god championship mode, but he pulled it off. I didn't realize that he kind of still had that gear because I always feel like he gets caught. But no, that time he scored. Was fantastic, a really great performance, and just the offense in general, whether it was Mike Williams, catching passes, whether it was Austin Ekeler running, like everything just seemed to kind of balance really well and help itself out. Like the run game worked really well. So I feel like they're able to throw a bit more, but they also threw really well. And that helped out the run game. And both of those things really helped out the screen game, or the working to the flats. Like everything was so nice today. But yes, it really did start with the ground game. Except for Larry Roundtree, who had 10 carries for 15 yards. But, that's garbage time with Chase Daniel on the field. So we won't talk about that.
I got to mention the Larry Roundtree thing real quick. I don't know if you guys caught this in the stadium, but he got a first down run, I believe.
And he pointed to the watch.
Pointed to the watch. I don't know, it was just such a funny moment because I feel like no one who was in the game really cared except him. But good moment for Larry Roundtree, on that play.
Yeah, that was on his one reception, the screen reception that he took for 13 yards, and then he did the fake first down and then actually went for it too. So hey, his celebration game is on point. I have to give him that.
It is. And he's honestly a great teammate. It seems like he's always hyping up his dudes. I think Austin Ekeler got the ball today and he was just hyping him up. So you know what? Yeah. Cool. With that said, maybe a topic for a different time. I would like to see Isaiah Spiller get 10 touches in a game in moments like this, but I guess he can't play special teams.
Would be 11 touches, technically speaking.
I would love 11 touches. I would love 1.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, I was going to say that too. So definitely a different topic. But all right, guys, any other thoughts here about the offensive performance today?
I hope it continues.
Yeah. I'm actually excited to see what they did schematically when I watch film. So it's the first time in quite a while that I feel that way about this offensive performance. So again, not a super explosive day from Justin Herbert. 21 of 28, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns. Very clean performance from him. Couple really explosive throws in terms of the intermediate range. I will say that throw to Mike Williams when Mike Williams had the one-handed catch, that was just an insane hole shot as well. It's not going to be one of his social media throws by any means, but I thought he had a great day. And then the touchdown to Gerald Everett too was just a freaking missile that he just uncorked there. So again, not a super flashy day, but a really solid, clean game from him today.
Yeah, even the touchdown to Gerald Everett was an absolute whole shot. He said, dude, the way that it just came off his hands. And in maybe not an explosive day for Justin Herbert, but 2 touchdowns is a whole lot more than we've been getting in
more
the
than 0
recently.
Yeah,
so more than 0. So I'll take it from that standpoint. And it just felt like everything, we talked about everything in the offense in terms of the rushing game and feeding Mike Williams kind of like being easier throughout the whole game. But yeah, it just felt like Herbert, had a good, we talked about, having those like safety valves and things being easier for Herbert on the field rather than just like having to grind out 4 or 5 yards at a time. And this is a game where you just felt like everything was easier, and his numbers might even look better if, obviously some of the plays, like the Mike Williams, legal contact thing. There are a couple other, hit or miss plays in terms of shots. But yeah, overall, I think really good Herbert game, and just happy that he kind of got the passing touchdown monkey off his back a little bit in terms of this game. And, happy that, Gerald Everett and Donald Parham in terms of the offense got involved in the red zone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So really quickly, I see a bunch of the super chats. We'll get to the super chats here in a second. We kind of want to get through the structure of our show first. So appreciate them. I'll say that right now. We'll answer some of these questions here once we kind of get through our show. But I did want to acknowledge some of the guys who are sending those through. So we'll get to your questions here in a second. In terms of the defensive performance, obviously the Chargers only allowing the 10 points, second consecutive week where they get a shutout on defense in the second half. So the defense really kind of cranked things up a little bit. I did want to start here with what Tyler just kind of mentioned here about Joey Bosa. Obviously the biggest storyline of the day for the Chargers defense. 24 total snaps for Joey. He had 3 pressures, which again is unofficial, like Tyler highlighted, 2 solo tackles. So Alex, what did you kind of make of the way that they used Joey today? What do you think of his performance? And how encouraged do you think we should be about the way that he played today?
Very encouraged because what he had 24 snaps, and he, based on Arjun's numbers, led the team in pressures coming back along with Morgan Fox. So I mean, he's still Joey Bosa is what we learned today, and just to see him back in that state playing really well. I was honestly, it made sense, I guess, as the game went on that they wanted to get him back into game shape. So I was a little bit surprised that he was still in the fourth quarter. When they had him 31-10, I thought they would be a little bit more cautious with it, but it seemed like there was a real effort from Joey, from the coaching staff to be like, hey, you need to get game reps. I need to get game reps just from both of their standpoints. So I think that was really nice to see, and also happy that it went positively because, in an alternate world where something happens to Joey Bosa and they were up 21, maybe we're having a different discussion. But overall, yeah, really good game from Bosa. I mean, the defensive line as a whole, from a pass rushing standpoint, did really good today. Yeah, there's nothing negative I can say from that standpoint. Just happy that Joey Bosa is back. This offensive line is much better with him. And in addition to, freeing up Khalil Mack and Morgan Fox and all those guys to do their thing, now you have a legit kind of rotation, right? In terms of having Joey Bosa, who's kind of rotated with Kyle Van Noy during the game. And Kyle Van Noy had a really awesome game today as well from a pass rushing standpoint. Again, his 4th consecutive game with a sack, which is not something I thought I would be saying a month ago.
No, not at all.
But here we are. Kyle Van Noy has been playing really well too. So it just feels like, again, from a pass rushing perspective, defensive line coming together at the right time.
Yeah, it wasn't. So it's 22. So 23 dropbacks for Baker Mayfield, 19 attempts, 3 sacks. So that's 3 other dropbacks. And then I believe the intentional grounding doesn't count as an attempt. So that's one more, which was, I don't know why it took 45 years for them to talk about that intentional grounding.
It was annoying.
But whatever, intentional grounding regardless. I forget who brought the pressure on that one, but it was fantastic. Yeah, for Joey Bosa to come back and have 3 pressures, again, unofficially, but it felt like at least 2 or 3 that I saw. So that would make sense. At least 1 run stop in the 4th quarter late there when he was playing with the entire JV team for some reason. I don't know why, but if he wanted to get more snaps in and he felt good, hey, that's great. That's a good sign. You know, it wasn't like Keenan where they shut him down for a half all of a sudden. They were like, yeah, you know, if you want to get more snaps in, go for it. And he felt like it seemed like, you know, that he was good to go. So cool with me. Really, really good there from the pass rush overall. I think that's really what's going to kind of save their season, even if they're not great on first down against the run, which, you know, I think is really what it's going to be overall in the postseason and moving forward, because just it's what we expect at this point. Against the run, they might have some good moments. They might have some good plays. You know, depending on who's in, they might be better on some instances, but, you know, it's not a great run defense. But if you can at least win on 3rd down, you know, 3rd and long, 3rd and short, whatever, with coverage, with the pass rush, like Alex was talking about, you know, solid day.
Yeah, you know, in terms of Joey, I thought that there were a couple really good moments where you saw his explosiveness. You know, there was one, the play that Baker ended up scrambling and obviously getting past Kenneth Murray. You know, you saw that speed to power rush from Joey Bosa, and I'm really excited to go back and watch how he played on tape. So I would expect those 3 pressures to hold up. I feel like, you know, there could potentially be even more there. So I thought he had a really good day. I was, you know, we were, excuse me. We were expecting, you know, like 10 to 15 snaps. So, you know, him playing 24, I think is the best sign possible here. Him feeling good enough to continue to play throughout the 4th quarter. You know, just very, very encouraged by the way that he played. And as Alex highlighted, the pass rush in general. So that's been the key for the Chargers defensively over the last few weeks, in my opinion, is just being able to get in those situations where they're able to activate that pass rush, when they're able to stay ahead of the sticks. So, the Rams today were 4 of 11 on 3rd down. So that's really been a trend that has continued over the last 5 weeks that really, you know, has been playing a crucial role in this defensive resurgence. So, you know, whenever they were able to stay ahead of the sticks, they were able to force, you know, quick punts and things like that. Obviously, there were some leaks in the run defense, which are definitely a bit of a concern today, really the only concern today. But from a pass rush standpoint, from a pass coverage standpoint, I feel like it was a really solid day from the defense in that regard.
Someone was talking about Gerald Everett's quote. Not bad. Yeah, the run defense, it will be nice to see Joey back in there full time, or as much as he can. Someone said on Twitter that Chris Rumph is the new almost guy of this team, whereas like Melvin Ingram was the almost sack guy. Chris Rumph seems to be the almost get you in the backfield guy, which I guess is a positive. You know, that means that you are getting there for some reason, right? There's a reason you're back there, because you're great off the line or something. But yeah, he's got to continue to build and get better at that, because that's going to kill the run defense if you can't, you know, get those things handled. Because I think he's at a 56 or 57% missed tackle rate at this point, which is unheard of. I didn't realize you can get to that number.
Yeah. Screw it. So for really quickly, for the Gerald Everett quote, for those who are listening and didn't see it, Daniel Popper was writing a story about how the offense was trying to get into a better rhythm. And the quote he used from Gerald Everett said that the difference offensively was, quote, really believing in our new identity as dominators instead of being a team that may or may not make the playoffs. We're starting to establish ourselves as contenders, Super Bowl contenders, he said, end quote.
Yeah, I like that. And again, Herbert in the postseason, they can just do that, honestly. One game. Someone's saying Chris Rumph hyperextended his knee, but I don't know.
I
There
didn't see
was
anything about.
one of the special teams plays I saw as everybody was kind of going downfield. He was a little bit slow to get off the field. I felt like that was earlier in the first half, though. If I'm not mistaken. Anyways, yeah. In terms of the run defense, I am curious to really go back and watch what they were doing because there was a time where they had David Moa, Chris Hinton, Chris Rumpf,
I was just gonna
and
say.
Calvin Noy out there. I think that was the play that Cam Akers, broke off for like the 65-yard runner or whatever it was. So it kind of felt like they were managing a little bit, Khalil Mack's workload, Sebastian Joseph Day's workload, maybe trying to see if they had anything in David Moa. I feel like he was out there a lot. And I didn't feel like Braden Fajoko was out there a ton like he normally is either. So
No.
I feel like they were just trying to maybe experiment with some things, keep some guys healthy. So I'm not going to be too worried about the run defense until I really go in and watch that film. But Cam Akers going off for 120 yards is definitely not ideal. That was really their only source of offense consistently today. But like I said, try not to be too negative there because of the way that they were kind of rotating in that the backups, the JV squad, as Tyler said.
Right.
Yeah, you stole my line.
Yeah, definitely across the defensive line. They had sort of the backups in there, so from that standpoint, game you're gonna go back and say is falling. That being said, I just felt like watching it, you had Kenneth Murray, just not really in the right spots at the right time when it came to the run defense. And when runs kind of leak into the second level, I did think the linebacker play was a little bit lacking as a whole. Not Drew Tranquil's greatest game, in my opinion, as a Charger. So I thought that could have been a little bit better. But, as a whole, it's kind of nitpicky. Granted, based on what the defense did today, they only gave up 10 points. But it just feels like the run defense, based on the teams they've played, has been a little bit better. But you still have, 5.4 yards per carry given up to today. Obviously, their yards per carry would be pretty high as well. It's something that playing Denver next week, you would like to see go down in terms of being able to stop Denver's rushing offense. If we can't stop Denver's rushing offense, we might have a little bit of a problem. But yeah, so nothing that makes you too worried about the playoffs, but we've never really seen this team give a dominant run defense performance. And you do have teams in the playoffs, obviously, that can run the ball, like the Bengals with Joe Mixon and the Chiefs with, McKinnon and Pacheco. Do plenty of stuff in the run game that could, give the Chargers problems. So just as a whole, something that I would like to see, going better going forward.
Yeah, just really quickly before Tyler jumps in here, that the linebackers and the safeties definitely were having a tough time with just the smoke and mirrors that Sean McVay brings to the table every single week. I mean, that's happened all throughout his career as an offensive play caller, but to see that issue pop up again, we hadn't really seen it, be a relevant thing for quite some time. And Kenneth Murray had been playing pretty well. Same with Drew Tranquil. Not a banner day from that duo. Not a banner day from Alohi Gilman or Nasir Adderley either. I feel like the missed tackles there are going to be pretty significant on film and obviously in the statistics as well. So again, from a defensive front standpoint, I'm trying not to be, too harsh, but definitely not an ideal performance from the back seven of the Chargers defense today.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely not. And you stole the exact thing I was going to say, which I'm glad you pointed out, which is it didn't seem like they were. No, it's totally fine. I'm glad you brought it up because that means I'm not crazy, I guess. And they were playing more guys than I'm used to. I didn't expect Moa to be out there for, it felt like 20 snaps. Part of that was because they pulled some guys, but, Fajoko wasn't really out there all that much. They were trying different things, trying out maybe even different players. And I understand that, they obviously had a plan where if they got enough points, going up 21 isn't a huge lead. It was insurmountable for the Rams, but they were 21 points. Okay, we'll pull our guys. There was no point in just, let's get one more touchdown drive to be sure. No, they pulled their guys. So, it seemed like it was a game where they're really trying out different things. So not too worried, but of course in the postseason, you want to see that shape up.
Right.
Yeah, especially if you're going into a matchup with Doug Peterson and Travis Etienne, who are really kind of clicking on the ground right now. So if you're struggling against smoke and mirrors against the Rams, that is going to be something that Doug Peterson is also going to highlight. So it felt like in the first half that Sean McVay really figured out, like, okay, these are the places where I'm going to go attack, and these are the areas of the field that I need to consistently hit with Baker Mayfield. And like Tyler said, it wasn't until the Chargers kind of really stuck that lead up as high as it went to that the Rams were like, okay, this isn't really plausible for us. But when the Rams were in rhythm, it did feel like they were pretty clearly targeting the linebackers and safeties and really trying to get after them. And, for most of the game, or at least for the first half, it worked pretty good for them.
Yeah, for what it's worth, like the Broncos had a hard time stopping the Rams last week. The Broncos are hurt too, and they're not exactly playing for much last week. This week, for some reason, they're taking to the Chiefs. But the Rams, Cam Akers had 5.1 yards last week as well. So, it's not like an unusual thing. This wasn't like a Rex Burkhead, oh, hello, out of nowhere performance. Cam Akers has been playing really, really well. And it seemed like the Rams did a very good job moving the offense. Like what they were doing in the first quarter actually had me a bit worried because it really seemed like they were forcing the Chargers to, address their weaknesses, make guys tackle in space. That wasn't working, stop the run. So I think moving forward, that's something to keep an eye on. But overall, like I'm not really too concerned.
No, not too concerned. They are the 5th seed now. So like Steven said, they could play Jags, obviously. So that's sort of a problem with Travis Etienne. I know everyone in the chat is saying, hey, I hope they play the Titans. Yeah, I mean, the Titans probably are the weakest playoff
I hope
team.
they play the Titans. Come on. We can say it.
I know people want the weakest matchup, but also like if this run defense
it's just not,
keeps playing like it's been playing, do you want to test going against Derrick Henry twice one season? I don't know. Right. So there's small things just like that in terms of seeing what the run defense has been. But again, considering the amount of personnel that was changed in and out and Joey Bosa still getting back up to speed and all these things, not a long-term concern.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I certainly hope the Titans make the playoffs, right? I would much rather play the Titans as Joshua Dobbs at quarterback instead of Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson, but it's just not happening, man. I mean, the Titans have pretty clearly mailed their season in, so it's going to be the Jaguars if the Chargers are able to get to that 5th seed. So, all right, guys. Any other thoughts about the defense before we jump into some super chats and then wrap it up with studs and duds?
I think the studs and duds will cover my final thoughts.
All right, sounds good. All right, so run through some of these super chats. Joe Alexander also mentioning the game in Duval. He says Bolts are the best of the rest. Excited for a possible game in Duval. The stadium was leaking today, but our defense, parentheses, except run D, wasn't bolt up. Is that about the rain? It was a little rainy today.
Dude, it got cold. There was a moment in that game where I looked at Steven and Arjun, and it was also just the clouds roll in, and it's raining, and it's windy. I'm like, it's chilly. Never mind. I want to go play in Jacksonville. Forget it. I don't want to play with the Bengals anymore. And it's like 60 degrees, and I'm freezing.
Yeah, there was actually a point in the game where they had to turn all the lights on. And, me and Brooke had been talking all week about being kind of bummed that we didn't get to see SoFi at night, primetime game. But when they had the lights on there for a little bit, it did kind of feel like a little bit of a primetime game. So it's a really weird feeling. Like, we were obviously kind of like right at the back of the entrance, and SoFi's open on each of the ends, right? So you'd feel like a little bit of the moisture coming in, and it was pretty windy and the dark clouds over the stadium. So it was a weird weather situation because then it only lasted for like 15 minutes and then it warmed back up. So it was a little funny today.
We just needed it for the third quarter. That was like good juju. It worked.
There we go. So we're going to be a cold weather team because we need that cold weather to get those third quarter touchdowns.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if anyone's brought this up, but the Jaguars-Titans game in terms of the Chargers' potential playoff opponent as the 4th seed, that is the Saturday 8 p.m. game now. So it will not be Sunday Night Football.
That's good. Good for them. Good for the Jaguars being able to host a game in that spot. All right, next up here, Roberto Castillion. Appreciate the super sticker there. Looks like he's a member as well, so appreciate that. Richard up next. He says, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Chargers have now gone 13 straight quarters without giving up a passing touchdown. Last time was Davis slipping versus Hill.
I believe you.
That sounds right, because it wasn't – they didn't give up a passing touchdown to the Titans, right?
Titans was a Tannehill rush. I'm guessing Derrick Henry. So, yes, that sounds right.
And then the Colts obviously didn't score a touchdown.
Yeah. Someone also, let me find it real quick.
And then today, Rams was a Thomas Brown run, which was, I didn't know he was still in the league, so that's fun.
Mm-hmm. Someone on
Malcolm
Twitter
Brown?
named John mentioned out that the Chargers have trailed for only 2 minutes and 30 seconds in the last 4 games combined.
Ooh. That's a good stat. Yeah, Malcolm Brown, not Thomas Brown. Thomas Brown is their running backs coach. So, my bad. All right, getting here to the next one. All right, Jose Anguiano says you can't drop back 20 times unless you want to see Herbert carted off. So, not quite sure what that comment is about.
Maybe straight. Well, you want to protect Herbert, so you can't just straight drop back 20 times. I assume you mean like straight drop backs, not like play action drop backs, but
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you have to protect him for sure.
Yeah. I know, sorry, I'm just trying to scroll through. I thought they were all like close next to each other.
Whatever, whenever.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, you're up.
Good job.
Thanks.
Daniel Vega says, where do you guys think the Chargers stand with Joe Lombardi? Do you think they would have to make the Super Bowl for him to be safe? What do you think there, Alex?
I don't think that there's like a target they have to make this point for him to be safe. Obviously, if the Chargers won the Super Bowl, it would probably be pretty difficult to get rid of the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. Brandon Staley or the coaching staff, like as a whole, looks at it as we have to make X point, and then our coordinators are safe. Because I think if the Chargers, for example, had made the playoffs last year after beating the Raiders, and maybe even they win a game in the wild card round last year and get knocked out in the divisional, Darius Swinton still would have been fired. So like at the same time, yeah, maybe there's a point where Joe Lombardi kind of can secure his job by high-profile playoff on offense. But I also don't think that Brandon Staley reviews things at the end of the season.
Where do they stand with Joe Lombardi? I think they're just going to let it all happen, and that's what they're going to decide. I don't think they're at a particular stance at this point. I think they're at a middle, I guess. Maybe they're at a crossroads, and they just need to see, do we get 24 to 30, 27 points a game? Like, I don't expect them to go on the road in Buffalo and put up 30. They might have to, but, I'm not going to be like, fire Lombardi if they don't have 30 points. But, above 21 would be great. It really depends on how they're winning these games.
Yeah, I think the Chargers are, showing that they are willing to let the situation play out. I think, if by season's end, the offense still has not really developed that much of a rhythm, like if today was really kind of an aberration and they're not really able to build off of this. Apologies for the sirens outside of my hotel. That was fun. Yeah, so I think it just depends on what the offense is able to do here and how they're able to handle the next few weeks, if there is a next few weeks. Right now, the numbers for the Chargers offense are very bleak in terms of like their rankings in metrics, really regardless whatever kind of metric you want to find. So I have a hard time believing that if the offense stays at the level that it has been over the last few weeks, that Lombardi will be sticking around. However, if today is more of a stepping stone for the Chargers and they're able to kind of figure it out over the next few weeks and make a strong playoff push, then Lombardi probably saves his job in that instance. So, it's going to really depend on what happens down this stretch run.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of an extension here.
Another
Jacob
thing
said, oh, sorry, Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, in terms of that, like if you're trying to figure out who could replace Lombardi or other potential names in that, it's going to depend on how these other coaching vacancies are filled too. So it's be something to watch whenever the regular season is till whatever time the Chargers are out of the playoffs, whether they go to the Super Bowl or they're knocked out wild card weekend. So, if you're looking for candidates for that or how that process will play out, when the Super Bowl would be a pretty big deal there.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of an extension here from Jed Jacobson. It says offensive play call seems like less Lombardi staples from the last few weeks. Do you think Staley had his hands on that more this week? Yeah, tough to really say without watching the film. I only recall like a couple instances of stick, but I think the key thing here is that the Chargers were really able to stay ahead of the chains and be able to, be effective on early downs. It's, something I talked about yesterday, but the run game was really working for them today. And I think that really was the biggest difference in the way that they approached this game, is that they finally felt like they were able to do some things effectively on the ground, and that really kind of set up a better passing attack for them.
Yeah, I mean, there were still toss, and even toss plays were working today. I think the only real difference in what I've seen is the way they were using tight ends as blockers from the backfield. Otherwise, it really felt like a lot of the Joe Lombardi staples. It's just not the ones we completely hate. I mean, there were still the quick throws to the flat. Keenan Allen was going to motion; they were going to throw it to him. It just seemed like things were working. It just felt like the timing and the execution were a lot better today. So, kind of the same things that he's been calling. It's just the timing, the execution, and of course, like the opponent wasn't that great either.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Next one here from the LA Chargers fan. Again, appreciate all the super chats today, guys. It's been a fun chat for sure. He says Chargers are going to make noise, playing their best football going into the playoffs. Thanks for a year of great content. Cheers to more in 2023. Appreciate their kind words there. Obviously, appreciate all the support. He's always in here sending some super chats. So, the Chargers are certainly playing their best football here. We'll see if they're able to get that 5 seed wrapped up next week with a win over the Broncos. But Tyler, what are you kind of feeling right now about his point here about making some noise in the playoffs?
I absolutely think so. I think for me, win or lose the division, and obviously they didn't get the division. If this team can just be healthy enough to go into the playoffs, they can beat any of these AFC teams and potentially NFC teams. It's just they need to be healthy and they need to get there. They are getting healthier and they have officially gotten there. Now it's just time to play the games. And I want the Denver game to be over because we're so close to Justin Herbert in the postseason. And there's just something about the way he plays in high pressure moments. Again, like with the world watching him against the Dolphins and how well he played, or against the Raiders where maybe he didn't play great the entire game. But holy cow, that fourth quarter, I mean, they literally could not have done more than he did, to bring this team back. And now we're going to get that in the postseason in these elimination style moments. But the team that's really seemed to have found itself, maybe it's not every phase, every game, but the defense is coming strong. And it seems like the offense is coming together. So I really do feel like I won't pick them to, win every game maybe, but they absolutely can win any of these games in the postseason. And that's a really cool feeling.
Yeah, I still feel pretty murky about going to Buffalo. That one is probably the one that if I had to pick, I probably wouldn't pick the Chargers to win that game. But look, I mean, you can see them very easily potentially beating Jacksonville or Tennessee, or at least, being able to match what those teams have. And then after that, you're taking a trip to Buffalo, Cincinnati, or Kansas City, depending on who gets the 1 seed. They can play with Kansas City or Cincinnati. Not saying they would win either of those games, but you can talk them into winning those kinds of games. They always play Kansas City very close, beat Cincinnati last year in the regular season. So, you can sort of construct a path in which the Chargers certainly at least can make the AFC Championship game. Not saying even that's what I will pick them to do, but I think that in terms of making noise, if making noise means they win one playoff game, have a chance to, then yeah, they can make noise in the playoffs for sure.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to how I view the playoffs for the Chargers, I think they absolutely have the formula to really make a run. you have an elite quarterback that can go off at any given moment, like Tyler's talking about. You have the supporting cast that's healthier, that's playing really well. And I think almost the second most important thing there behind, Justin Herbert is Joey Bosa's return. Now they have a pass rush that can really heat up opposing quarterbacks, cause some havoc. And, maybe you get a couple extra possessions in a playoff game that are really able to make that big of a difference. You have an opportunistic secondary that can really get their hands on some football. So will the Chargers make some noise? To me, that's winning multiple games. That's not just beating like Jacksonville in the wild card round.
Yeah.
So we'll see if they're able to really make some noise. But I think the formula is there because, they're playing their best football right now. They are. And they have the elite pass rushers. They have the elite quarterback. They have the elite weapons. It's just a matter of, going out there and executing, managing some potential, less than ideal weather circumstances. But the Chargers absolutely have the formula to go out and win multiple playoff games. It's just a matter of, going out there and doing it.
Yeah, and part of that is Rashawn Slater. I mean, the idea, you could argue, honestly, when healthy, that Slater's the best player on the team, and certainly at the most important position. I mean, Rashawn Slater, to just pick an edge rusher and delete him for an entire game. You don't have that luxury with most guys. Like, you can't even say with, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, and these guys that they can, just wipe out an offensive tackle. Whereas Rashawn Slater can just like, okay, the Chase Young, all right, cool. We'll have to hear about him the entire game. They're not playing Chase Young, but that was the first game that he played. So if he comes back in the wild card game, or at least they can sneak out of that game, he gets, one game under his belt, and then they go travel to a Cincinnati or Kansas City, like, I mean, that's where you can really make some noise because that just changes everything for you.
Yeah. I think I was just going to say really quick, the NFL turns into a league where if you have a top 10 quarterback, then you have a chance in the playoffs. The other teams who have success in the playoffs are San Francisco with whatever quarterback they have. But outside of that, if you have a top 10 guy at the quarterback position, then you have a chance in addition to all the edge pieces and wide receiver and everything else we talk about with the Chargers. But yeah, I think they can make noise, assuming Herbert has the performances we know he's capable of having.
Yeah, absolutely agree there. All right, we'll get to the next one here from Curtis. Oh, I was going to say about Rashawn Slater, we haven't really heard much about him recently. Apparently on the broadcast today, and Alex can probably comment on this, that they were saying that Rashawn is pretty close to returning. Brandon Staley, there's been so much focus on Joey Bosa. We haven't really gotten anything from Brandon Staley in terms of Rashawn Slater recently. Duke Manyweather did say earlier this week that he's getting stronger and stronger every day. So it just kind of remains up in the air. I don't think there's anything really concrete out there just yet.
Yeah, the broadcast seemed to be more just be editorializing what we had heard from like Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport and people earlier in the season that they're on Slater in the event that Chargers made it, certain distance in the playoffs.
Gotcha. All right. So next one here from Curtis Davis. He says, who do you guys think is more likely to get 1,000 yards next week? Mike Williams needs 140 for receiving yards, and then Austin Ekeler needs 120 for rushing yards.
Is Patrick Surtain playing? Not Mike Williams.
Yeah,
I've seen that. I've seen this movie.
No, that's the answer.
Yeah, but is Ekeler going for 120? I mean, Mike Williams really is only like 2 receptions from getting 140 yards.
Just the 2 longest receptions of the year for the Chargers.
Listen, like he could pop off at any moment.
I mean, and he did against the Broncos in the Week 17 game last year, where Herbert, set the record with Williams. So, I mean, it's possible. I hope they're not in a scenario where Mike Williams needs 140 yards.
Yeah.
Wait, Braden Fogo is being drug tested.
Wait, what?
Everyone in the chat saying Braden Fogo is being drug tested right now.
I have to go look at this.
Oh my goodness.
But Surtain's the decider there.
Yep, he just tweeted out Ike Man with the angry emoji face, and there's a screenshot of a text message that says, you have been selected for a drug test tomorrow morning. Please be at the facility between the hours of 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. The drug test will also notify you. That sucks because they're not going in the office. They're not going in the facility tomorrow. They're supposed to have Victory Monday tomorrow. That sucks.
He's gonna sack Russell Wilson 10 times next week, man.
All right, I thought there's another one here from Don Cheeto in terms of the fan mix. He says he heard that it was 60-40 Chargers. It didn't feel like that way. It felt like 90-10 Chargers. Like there was not a very noticeable Rams presence today. I think like best case from like a Rams perspective, you're talking about like 70-30.
Yeah, it's hard to tell when the fan base, like, there's not a whole lot to cheer for, and then they lost 31-10. But there was a moment where in like the 500 section, I finally heard Rams fans starting to chant, and it was so weird. It was just like specifically in a one section we found the Rams fans, but otherwise, like, yeah, I would honestly say 75-25 would be a best case for them. I mean, I get it. Like the Chargers had their season ticket holders, so they got to have, the tickets to the game already. But and also, the Chargers are actually winning games. So I don't know, but it certainly wasn't a lot of Rams fans, and they certainly weren't loud.
On TV, it sounded like 70-30, 80-20, something along those lines.
Yeah, with the Rams, there was not a big Rams presence at all. All right, so there was a super chat from Renee about Trey Pipkins as well. Trey finished the game. He looked fine in closing the game down. I don't understand how, like, that man barely got off the field. Fair, very fair. But Trey barely was able to get off the field, and then he came out from the tent and was able to go back in, and he looked really good. So don't really know what happened there, if it was a back injury or a re-aggravation of his knee, but I think he should be fine this week.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if would you like $4 million, Tyler? Yes. Yeah, you just rise from the dead. You find a way to tape it, whatever. All
right, let's wrap up today's show. We'll do studs and duds, and then we'll head out of here. So I'll let Alex go first here. Alex, who's your stud of the day?
I'll give stud of the day to Cameron Dicker, now at 95% field goal percentage for the season. Okay. Not his like greatest game today, but I'll give it to him. He's 95% of the season, 20 for 20 extra points, I believe. So he continues doing his thing.
He kicked one field goal, and he's just out of the day, man.
I know, man.
He could have gone with DeAndre Carter's 26 yards on punt returns.
Stud of the year more so than stud of the day. We're ringing in the new year, so it's finishing. It's finishing an arc.
Yeah, finishing an arc. Now we'll see, man. Like the breakout can still continue next week. Maybe he's the one who breaks 1,000 yards next week. You never know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tyler. Goodness gracious. Where do I start? Okay. I feel like we don't give it enough to certain members of the offensive line. I don't really know who to give the game ball to, but I think overall, when you have 0 sacks, I think on the day, unofficially 5 pressures allowed total. When Austin Ekeler has 122 yards on 10 carries. Joshua Kelly has 9 on 45. And then they kind of just gave up for Larry Roundtree, I guess. But, like the offensive line really did dominate the game. The Rams didn't exactly have all their guys. Obviously, again, no Aaron Donald, but this is a very well-coached group up front. And the offensive line had their way the entire game pretty much. So I'll give it to the offensive line today because they deserve some love.
There you go. Appreciate that. Always down for some love for the Hogs up front. So I think for me, stud of the day, I think has to be either Mike Williams or Austin Ekeler. So I'll lean Austin Ekeler just because this was such a breakout performance, if you want to call it one of those. This is just a vintage Austin Ekeler. Over 160 yards from scrimmage, 2 touchdowns. Unfortunately for me, had to play him in 2 fantasy championships, so that was not fun to look at after the game. But Austin's just been, he's one of these performances has been brewing for him, and it came out in a big way today. Breaking tackles, making people miss, handling his business in pass protection like he always does, being that safety valve for Justin in several moments. So I'm going to go with Austin Ekeler, stud of the day.
Yeah. If I have to give serious suggestions, then obviously Mike Williams would be stud of the day. But I will also mention Morgan Fox real quick, just as a stud of the day
Good
too.
one.
In terms of we entered this season talking about him and Jerry Tillery competing for who would be on the pass rushing interior.
Yeah.
And Morgan Fox, obviously, with the release of Jerry Tillery, has solidified that role. And he's been, he's been balling out from a pass rushing standpoint to play as good as he's playing. The Chargers have just needed a player like him for a long time that they can trust on those pass rushing snaps. So the fact that he is playing as good as he is good.
Yeah, and he also had a couple of really crucial run stops. After that Cam Akers big play, he essentially took I think it was the left guard and essentially like threw him down at the feet of the running back. Like it was a remarkable play. So, Morgan Fox has been great. He's been one of the best free agency pickups of any NFL team. And, he's setting career highs this year in pressures, sacks, all that good stuff. And really picked it up in the run defense as well.
Absolutely.
All right. So dud of the day for me. I mentioned them earlier. I'm going with the linebackers, Kenneth Murray and Drew Tranquill.
Yeah.
It's really unfortunate because, especially for Drew, I felt like he played his best game of his career last week against the Colts. You can make an argument that he's been a top 5 player for this team all season. Some moments where he got turned around with the motion, some moments he didn't cover very well. Obviously didn't get to see him do much as a pass rusher. So Kenneth Murray, a lot of the same inconsistencies he's struggled with showed up again today. Unfortunately, just kind of a bad game for the two of them to not have their best today. So, duds of the day, I think for me have to be the two linebackers.
Yeah, good for me for December 31st saying Kenneth Murray has quietly put together fine performances the second half of the year. I believe he's gone from struggling to average, which I know sounds rough, but it does make a difference. And I'm happy to see some progress heading into the postseason. Wow, that was a bad game, Kenneth Murray. Getting juked out by Baker Mayfield is definitely not what I wanted to see after tweeting something like that. I didn't say he was a great elite player, but geez, I didn't think we were going to have it bite me in the ass that quick. So again, not like the easiest, Cam Akers is tough tackle, it seems, but it just Kenneth Murray, who did make some plays in the second half, I think, was a bit rough in several moments today, including one lucky hand of God moment that forced a pass breakup where the player should have walked into the end zone. I don't know who that was, but should have been a touchdown.
All right, Tyler, you want to give your dud of the day?
Well, I was definitely winding up with that one. So that was going.
It's okay. I'll take Tranquill. You can have Kenneth Murray.
Okay, Kenneth Murray. I apologize. I believed in you for one day. You are my dud of the day.
For one day. It lasted about 18 hours.
Yeah. I'm trying. Okay, I'm trying to be optimistic. They tell me I should be nicer.
All right, Alex. Who's your dud of the day?
Nasir Adderley. He got wiped out of quite a few plays pretty brutally, and it feels like whenever there was a Baker Mayfield completion, Nasir Adderley was kind of in the area. But yeah, I didn't think that this was his strongest game. Not by any means not as bad a game as Kenneth Murray. I'd have to go back and kind of rewatch to what about backers and safeties just weren't communicating super properly, this game, and that led to a lot of big run plays, led to a lot of big, plays for the Rams, just in their offense in general whenever they had them. So yeah, I would have to go linebackers and safeties in general, and then obviously I think that you kind of narrowed that down to Nasir Adderley and Kenneth Murray in this game.
Yeah, I think that's honestly perfect. Of all of the things that went wrong today, it really did seem like it was those two groups.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, hopefully we're a game closer to having Derwin come back and play a full game, which is desperately needed. So, all right, we'll wrap up our post game coverage there. Obviously the Chargers have an opportunity to clinch the 5 seed next week with a win over the Denver Broncos. No more ifs, ands, or buts. The lowest they can get is the 6th seed. If they lose and the Ravens win next week, that's kind of the scenario for them. So Chargers win means the Chargers are the 5th seed, which is fantastic for given where this team was a few weeks ago. All right, Alex, any final thoughts before we head out for this evening?
Heading into the 5th seed, happy 12th birthday. Hope he had a great day, and that he got to see one of his teams win this weekend. Did not get to see Michigan win. Very sad. But overall, he did get to see the Chargers win, and that's really what matters. So overall, great win for the Chargers. Probably their most efficient game of the year by any metric, and it looked that way when you were watching it. Excited to watch it on film and haven't smiled. So yeah, overall, just excited to see this team keep going.
Yep, very excited to see them keep going. It was nice, next week against the Broncos. They can be terrible. They cannot score in the third quarter. I mean, you'd like the 5th seed, of course, but like they're in, and the worst they can get is the 6th seed, which is nice as well. So it feels good. We're in a nice place. It's January 1st. Next week will be January 8th when they play. And hey, they're still playing January football. And that's nice.
It is nice. Chris Harry pointed out this is the Chargers' second 10 or more win season since 2010. Today marks the first 4-game win streak of Brandon Staley's career. So a couple of firsts for Brandon Staley and the Chargers, and hopefully this is a sign of things to come. So mostly very positive vibes today on the show and obviously on social media. Chargers getting a much needed blowout victory today against the Rams, just in terms of being able to relax, handle their business, and obviously being able to do that was a fantastic result from the game today. So really excited about watching the film, excited to see what this team's able to do next week and going forward, and a lot to build off of for sure. All right, so appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Hopefully, you guys enjoy the holiday weekend, enjoy the Victory Monday. I hope that my college football team has a better result tomorrow than Arjun's team did yesterday. If anybody in the chat is at the Rose Bowl, you'll feel free to come say hi. We're going to be tailgating and stuff like that tomorrow. So, yeah, that's going to do it for us today, guys. We'll let you know. We're probably going to be going live on Wednesday for our usual preview show, and then also for our Saturday Q&A. So, yeah, that's going to do it. We'll see you guys next time.